Dr. David Hogben was holding his wife's hand when the crocodile took him. She was gripping his arm on a muddy riverbank in far north Queensland, trying to pull him out of the water when a 16-foot saltwater crocodile closed the distance beneath the surface and seized him. He looked at her. He felt her sliding toward the water, and he made a decision that would define the last seconds of his life. He let go. He released his wife's arm so that she would not be dragged in after him, and then the river swallowed him. What you are about to hear are the stories of 5 people who were taken by crocodiles while their families watched. The attacks were not the worst part. The watching was. Dr. David Hogbin. It was Saturday, August 3, 2024, and the steep, eroded banks of the Annan River near Cooktown in far north Queensland were slick with recent rainfall. Crocodile Bend, a stretch of river roughly 7 kilometers south of Cooktown, was known locally as a place where a resident 5-meter saltwater crocodile patrolled beneath high embankments that towered 5 to 8 meters above the surface. The water was murky, stained brown with sediment. The tide was rising. The wind was blowing at moderate speeds with gusts exceeding 15 meters per second, masking any sound from below the waterline. Crocodile Bend had become an informal tourist stop. Locals knew about the resident predator, and visitors would stand on the high banks to observe the animal from what they believed was a safe distance. Warning signs were posted as part of Queensland's Crocwise safety program. But the geological reality was something no sign could communicate. Toe erosion at the base of the embankment, caused by seasonal flooding and tidal saturation, had hollowed out the earth beneath the walking path. The ground looked solid. It was not. Dr. David Hogbin was 40 years old, a general practitioner based in Newcastle who had taken a non-traditional path into medicine, transitioning from nuclear medicine and real estate before graduating from Notre Dame in 2014. At Jules Medical Center, he specialized in pediatrics, dermatology, and acute care, and was described by patients and colleagues as a wonderful human being, a doctor who made people feel seen and heard, particularly during mental health crises. Hogbin was on a 4-wheel-drive camping expedition with his wife Jane and their 3 sons, aged 2, 5, and 7. The family were experienced campers, walking along an established path above the Annan River. David Hogbin was not swimming. He was not fishing. He was not wading. He was walking on dry land with his family when the earth beneath his feet gave way. The saltwater crocodile, Crocodilus porosus, is the largest living reptile on Earth. Adult males average 4 to 5.5 meters and weigh between 880 and 2,200 pounds. Exceptional individuals exceed 6 meters. Their jaws contain 64 to 68 conical teeth designed for gripping, and the muscles powering those jaws generate 3,700 pounds per square inch of bite force, the highest of any living animal. Once the jaw closes, nothing on Earth can pry it open. The death roll is the crocodile's signature killing mechanism. The animal clamps onto a limb or torso and spins its entire body along its longitudinal axis with explosive rotational force. For a crocodile approaching 5 meters, the torque generated is sufficient to cause immediate spiral fractures, traumatic amputation, and catastrophic soft tissue destruction. Saltwater crocodiles hunt by ambush. Their eyes, ears, and nostrils sit on a single plane at the top of the skull, allowing the animal to remain almost entirely submerged while monitoring the shore. A palatal valve at the back of the throat prevents water from entering the lungs when the mouth is open underwater. They can drown their prey without drowning themselves. They do not always consume their kill immediately. Large prey is often cached underwater, wedged beneath submerged logs, and consumed over days as the tissue softens. In the murky, tidal waters of far north Queensland, a 5-meter saltwater crocodile is functionally invisible until the moment it strikes. The Hogbin family was walking along the established path above Crocodile Bend at approximately 2:10 in the afternoon. The 3 boys were nearby. The river was brown and silent below them. David was walking at the edge of the embankment when the ground collapsed. The toe erosion that had been hollowing out the base of the bank finally reached the tipping point. David Hogbin fell 5.5 meters into the Annan River. Jane Hogbin heard the splash. She ran to the edge and scrambled down the steep, muddy embankment and reached for him. She got his arm. She held on. But the slope was near vertical, the mud was slick, and his weight was pulling her toward the water. She was sliding. She could feel herself being dragged in, and then she saw it. The resident 4.9-meter saltwater crocodile that had patrolled Crocodile Bend for years was closing in beneath the murky surface, drawn by the splash and vibrations of a body in its territory. The animal was moving toward her husband with the slow, deliberate focus of an apex predator that has never had to rush. David Hogbin saw it too. He saw his wife sliding toward the river. He saw the crocodile approaching. And in the final seconds of his life, he made a decision that no amount of medical training could have prepared him for. He let go of Jane's arm. He released her grip so that she would not be pulled into the water after him. It was a conscious, deliberate act of sacrifice. He chose his wife's life over his own. Within moments of that release, the crocodile seized him and dragged him beneath the surface. The entire sequence, from bank collapse to disappearance, lasted approximately 30 seconds. The couple's 3 young sons did not witness the actual strike. That detail, confirmed by family statements after the investigation, was the only mercy the Annan River offered that day. Jane Hogben reported her husband missing at 2:10 that afternoon. Queensland Police, wildlife rangers, and aerial drone teams launched an extensive search and rescue operation. On Monday, August 5th, wildlife officers identified a 4.9-meter saltwater crocodile with a distinctive white scar on its snout in a small creek roughly 4 kilometers upstream from the attack site. The crocodile was humanely euthanized. A necropsy revealed human remains in its stomach. Formal identification confirmed the remains were those of Dr. David Hogbin. The GoFundMe for the Hogben family raised hundreds of thousands of dollars within days. Patients from Jules Medical Center described losing not just a doctor, but a person who had genuinely changed their lives. One patient wrote that David had saved her during her darkest moment, that he had sat with her when no one else would. The community of Cooktown erupted in fresh calls for culling and more aggressive intervention. But for the family of David Hogben, policy meant nothing against the image of a husband letting go of his wife's hand to save her life. Bill Scott. While David Hogben was taken from a collapsing riverbank in 2024, a decade earlier in Kakadu National Park, a 62-year-old grandfather was snatched directly from a fishing boat while his wife watched from the shore. And there was not even time for a final word. It was June 7, 2014, and 62-year-old Bill Scott was standing in his 3.5-meter aluminum fishing boat at Bill Dean Billabong in Kakadu National Park, Northern Territory. His wife, Roslyn, his son, Aaron, and his daughter-in-law, Joanne, were on the bank just meters away. Scott reached toward the outboard motor to steady himself when the boat rocked. A 4.74-meter saltwater crocodile surged from the water, clamped its jaws around Scott's upper left arm, shoulder, and chest, and in one fluid motion flicked him out of the boat and into the water. Roslyn described what happened next in coroner's inquest testimony. "We all screamed and then there was nothing. No splashing or disturbance in the water. Aaron, standing 6 to 8 meters away with his back turned, heard a thump and a splash and turned to see only a big swirl and the tail of the crocodile. Bill Scott did not shout. He did not have time. He simply disappeared. The crocodile was later shot, and the autopsy confirmed Scott's remains in its stomach. The coroner's inquest called it a wake-up call. It was the first recorded instance in the Northern Territory of a crocodile taking a person directly from inside a boat. The finding established that a low freeboard, the distance from waterline to the top of the boat's side, offers no protection against a determined 5-meter predator. Bill Scott was not in the water. He was in a boat. It did not matter. Sean Cole. While Bill Scott was taken from a boat in Kakadu, a year earlier on the Mary River, a 26-year-old man was taken during a birthday party while 15 of his friends watched from the bank. And then the crocodile did something that none of them will ever forget. It was August 24, 2013, and 26-year-old Sean Cole was attending a friend's 30th birthday party at the Mary River Wilderness Retreat in the Northern Territory. The Mary River is home to one of the highest densities of saltwater crocodiles in the world. Despite numerous warning signs and verbal reminders from staff, Cole and a friend decided to swim across the 180-meter-wide river. As they were swimming back, a 4.7-meter crocodile closed in on Cole. In front of at least 15 people on the bank, the animal seized Cole and dragged him underwater. The screaming from the shore was audible for hundreds of meters, but the horror was not over. Approximately 2 minutes after the initial strike, the crocodile surfaced. It was still holding Cole in its jaws. The animal swam slowly past the group of onlookers, carrying Cole's body by the shoulder. Its massive head tilted slightly to keep its grip before sinking beneath the surface again. Witnesses described it as the crocodile parading the body. Biologically, the behavior was the animal securing its prey and transporting it to a caching location. Psychologically, for the 15 people watching their friend being carried past them like a trophy by a 5-meter prehistoric predator, the distinction did not exist. Several witnesses later reported symptoms consistent with acute stress disorder. The image of that crocodile swimming past with Sean in its mouth became the defining visual of their trauma, the one they could not stop seeing when they closed their eyes. The crocodile was tracked, shot, and confirmed as the attacker. Sean Cole had ignored every warning. He had swum in a river where crocodiles outnumber humans. But being wrong did not make his friend's trauma any less permanent. Lan Van Tran. In August 2014, just 2 months after Sean Cole's attack, 57-year-old farmer Lan Van Tran waded into the Adelaide River to free a snagged fishing line. His wife was standing on the bank, and the last thing she heard him say was a sentence that no spouse should ever have to carry. Lan Van Tran was fishing with his wife, T. Ban Lei, on the Adelaide River near the Adelaide River Bridge in the Northern Territory. His fishing line snagged in murky water. Seeing no crocodiles, he waded in to free it. The water was shallow. The line was close. It should have taken 10 seconds. A 4.5-meter saltwater crocodile known to locals as Michael Jackson, identifiable by a distinctive white head, launched from the water and seized Tran. His wife was standing meters away. The last words she heard her husband speak were, "Oh my God, I am dead." Then the crocodile's massive tail thrashed above the surface, and the water went still. That sentence, those 6 words spoken by a man in the jaws of a crocodile to the wife watching him die, represents a form of witness trauma that no psychological framework fully accounts for. The Banla did not just watch her husband die. She heard him acknowledge it in real time. She heard him understand, in his final seconds of consciousness, that the animal had him and that there was no escape. Lan Van Tran was not recovered intact. The crocodile was later identified and destroyed. Arthur Booker. 6 years earlier, on September 30, 2008, another wife waded near the Endeavour River in Cooktown while her husband checked crab pots. He never came back, and what she found at the water's edge was worse than watching. 62-year-old Arthur Booker, a Vietnam veteran, was camping with his wife Doris near the Endeavour River in Cooktown, far north Queensland. He walked to the riverbank to check his crab pots. Doris waited in the car. When he did not return after 2 hours, she went to find him. Doris Booker did not see the attack, but she saw everything it left behind. A snapped crab pot rope, large crocodile slide marks gouged into the mud, the unmistakable drag trail of a massive animal moving from the water to the bank and back, her husband's wristwatch lying in the dirt, one sandal, his camcorder still sitting on the ground where he had set it down to work the pots. There was no body, no sound, no blood, just the belongings of a man who had been standing in that exact spot minutes earlier and was now gone. The absence was total. Rangers eventually captured a 5.5-meter crocodile named Charlie and recovered Booker's remains from its stomach. But for Doris, the trauma was not the confirmation. The trauma was the 2 hours of silence, followed by the walk to the river, and understood what had happened to her husband without seeing a single second of it.